Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really powerful concept from sociology called field theory. It helps us see the invisible rules that shape everything from the art world to international politics. So let's get right into it.
First, I want you to picture something. Think about the world of global elites who gather at the Davos World Economic Forum. It's this very specific social space. It has its own unique culture, its own set of priorities, its own definition of what success even looks like.
Okay, now, let's completely switch gears. Think about the international art market. It's another global arena, right? But here, artists, galleries, and collectors, well, they're all competing for entirely different things. We're talking aesthetic prestige, cultural value, and, yeah, of course, a big financial return.
And just one more. Let's think about that massive worldwide scientific community that was in an all-out race to develop a COVID-19 vaccine. That space was driven by this really complex mix of intense collaboration on one hand and just fierce competition on the other.
So you have these three completely different worlds, and they're all global, but they play by totally different rule books, rules that are almost never written down. So what's going on here? Why is something that's super valuable in one world almost meaningless in another? Well, today we're going to explore the one theory that explains exactly why.
The answer lies in this brilliant concept from the French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu, and it's called field theory. This theory suggests we should see each of these arenas not just as, a bunch of people, but as structured social games, each with its own very specific logic.
So, what exactly is a field? Well, the formal definition is a constructed meso-level social order, which basically means it exists somewhere between our individual day-to-day interactions and huge societal structures. But here's the most important part. A field is not a physical place. It's a social space, like the art market or the scientific community, where you have a unique mix of actors, rules, culture, and power, and they all have to be present at the same time. You take one of those away, and you just don't have a field anymore.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, isn't that just a network? And that's a great question, but they're actually quite different. While a network is all about connections, a field is inherently positional. It's all about hierarchy. So think of it less like a flat spiderweb of who knows who, and more like a 3D landscape with clear high points and low points that everyone is constantly trying to climb.
All right, so let's build on that, because not all scholars see fields in the exact same way. You can really break it down into two main perspectives. It's kind of like looking at the same landscape but through two very different lenses.
So on one side, you have the thin conception. This comes more from American sociology, and it tends to see fields as arenas for interaction, focusing more on shared norms and cooperation. But then there's the thick conception from Bourdieu. In this view, it's all about power. It sees fields as competitive or agonistic games, which basically means they're battlegrounds where everyone is constantly fighting for a better position.
Okay, so if these fields are intense, competitive games, then what are the rules? To really get how they work, especially from that thick, power-focused perspective, we need to understand their three core mechanics. They are capital, illugio, and doxa.
First step is capital. And no, we are not just talking about money here. In field theory, capital is whatever specific currency gives you power within that particular game. So in the business world, yeah, it's economic capital. But in the academic world, it's cultural capital, like your publications or your knowledge. And in diplomacy, it might be symbolic capital, prestige. Every single field has its own special kind of capital that everyone is trying to get more of.
Next up is illugio, and this is such a cool idea. Illugio is the collective, unspoken belief among all the players that the game itself actually matters, that it's worth playing. It's that shared feeling that accumulating that field's special capital, whether it's scientific awards or artistic fame, is a goal worth dedicating your life to. If you don't have illugio, the game just falls apart.
And finally, there's doxa. Think of doxa as the deep, unwritten rules of the game. It's all the stuff that's so taken for granted that the players just accept it as natural, as common sense. Doxa is what makes the power structures in the field seem legitimate and makes them incredibly difficult to challenge.
Okay, so I know this might feel a little academic, but why does this actually matter for understanding the real world, for understanding something like international relations? Well, it matters a lot.
Because it gives us a powerful new lens to see the world. Field theory helps explain those subtle pecking orders you see in big organizations like the United Nations. It forces us to see power as something with many dimensions, not just who has the most money or the biggest army. It really shows us how global order is built, fought over and changed through these constant struggles for position.
And building on this, some scholars have developed what they call hegemonic order theory. Now, instead of just looking at which country is the strongest, this theory uses the idea of fields to see how a dominant power uses all kinds of capital, especially symbolic capital, to make its rule over the whole global field seem legitimate. In this perspective, really helps explain some puzzling moments in history. For example, why did Ming China in 1405 launch these massive, unbelievably expensive naval expeditions? Or why did the US pour billions and billions into the space race in the 60s? From a field theory view, these weren't just about exploring, they were huge, calculated investments in symbolic capital, all designed to project an image of dominance and legitimize their power on the world stage.
So this all builds up to one final, really big question that researchers are wrestling with right now. Is there such a thing as a single, global field of power?
In other words, is there one master field out there? A single arena where global elites from business, politics, science, and culture all compete to decide which type of capital is the ultimate prize. A place that basically sets the exchange rate between military might, economic wealth, and cultural prestige, and in doing so, determines the ultimate principle of global domination.
So, is there? Well, the evidence right now seems to suggest not yet. Global power is probably still too fragmented, too messy. But, and this is the key takeaway, what's so powerful about field theory is that it gives us the perfect toolkit to analyze how a structure like that could emerge. It gives us a new language, a new way to see the invisible games of power that are shaping our world right now, and what they just might become in the future.